Hello and welcome to News Up Now. I'm Gleidson Martins. My guest today is a special guest. He's an author, coach, and survivor. So please welcome Tom LeNoble.
It's so great to be with you today.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Likewise. I've been looking forward to it.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. So I have your book right here. You brought the book, which is a beautiful, beautiful title.
Thank you.
Business, My Life in Business Suits, Hospital Gowns, and High Heels.
Yes.
So let's break it down for people. And congratulations in best-selling,
Thank
national
you.
and internationally.
Thank you so much. It's so exciting, right? You know, my book is a memoir, but it crosses over into self-help. And what I want for the reader is to realize that who you are today is the sum parts of all who you've been in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Even though there may be parts of your life you're ashamed of, or that was outrageous, or you wanted to keep private, or maybe you just think they're not going to understand.
Uh-huh.
But without all those parts, you wouldn't be who you are today.
True.
So
true.
celebrate them. And so I've had this amazing career in business suits. Had 2 life-threatening illnesses, given 3 times to live 6 months. I've lived with metastatic cancer the last 13 years.
Wow.
So that's the hospital gowns, you know, that flimsy piece of fabric that
I
never
know.
ties well in the back.
Yeah.
When I was in my early 20s, I was in this talent show at the local gay bar. And back then I was in this little town in Gainesville, Florida, and everybody came together. So when you went in there, no matter what drag you were wearing, you were in this bar. And there was a talent show coming, and so a couple of my best friends and I, probably after a few beers, said we should be in this talent show. And we had all been theater kids, right? Huh. And so in the talent show we went, which was a drag talent show, and it was such a fun experience, and I was such a hit that I thought, I bet I could make some money doing this. And I'm back on stage. It felt like the theater again. And as you'll read in the book, Rita Dayworth was born. That led to 2 shows a night, 4 nights a week, traveling around the South, being in pageants, all that kind of stuff, the old-time drag we used to do. And so that's what the heels are about, and how that part of my life, which was, quite frankly, the out-of-control part.
That was before the business side.
Yes.
Business life.
The business had kind of started a little bit, but it was really before my real career. Yes.
So let's talk about you were one of the first employees of, back then, Facebook.
Yeah, I was sitting at Palm. I ran global service operations for Palm, the old Palm Pilot Trio people. They're part of HP now, and a recruiter called, and it was from this little unknown company to me called Facebook. They were still in colleges. I had no idea what it was. I told them I was working my dream job, traveling around the world, and thanked them and hung up the phone. And a buddy called me that I used to work with and said, I referred you to Facebook, and you kind of didn't talk to them. And I said, well, what's Facebook? Well, I went and interviewed with Mark Zuckerberg when he was 19. And it's a great story. I was in a suit, and I went to this little office that I think was over a little restaurant, a sandwich shop or a Chinese restaurant, whatever it was. And they were upstairs, and up the stairs I went in my suit. And as I got to the top, what I saw was graffiti art of women's breasts everywhere. I came around the corner to a small group of people, all young enough to be my child, a few liquor bottles here and there, and ended up interviewing with Mark and his signature T-shirts, sandals, and shorts at the time, and there I was in that suit. All I could think is, I need to take something off. And so I took my jacket off, and he and I had a conversation. Anyway, I went to Facebook and set up their first customer operations, their relationship with the National Suicide Hotline, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, a bunch of other things during that high growth time. But the craziest part is there I was with these 20-somethings, all really young 20-somethings, that had deferred law school, business school, medical school to work this dream job at Facebook. And I was old enough to be everyone's father there.
Wow. Well, let me tell you, I think most of their employees is still pretty young today. And I assume you have no idea the magnitude of the company that one day will be like today, right? So when you look back and when you compare the company today from when you start, how do you see the corporation today?
Well, it's interesting. I've had the good fortune to work for a lot of startups, and I worked for Walmart. I mean, I've worked at some of the biggest, especially back then. And all these different stages in company bring different things. So, back then when we started, the growth was so fast. I remember saying to people, if you didn't get your to-do list done today, throw it away because you're going to have a new one tomorrow, right? And then the company grows. And as it does, things change. Policies change, people change, and in that case, people grow up, right? People grow up from their 20s when our mindset is a little different than it is when we get to 40. In fact, last year, a group of us that were in the first group of employees had a reunion. And I thought, I'm not even going to go because now I'm like, they've got kids of their own that I could be their kid's grandfather, right? But I decided to go, and it was the best time for a number of reasons. One was I saw these people that were in their 20s that now were married with kids, and they all had these incredible positions and were doing really well. It made me very proud, right, that I even had anything to do with their lives, right?
Oh, yeah.
It was so super. And I remember going home that night thinking, the kids are all right, and it was such a magical time. But even in that microcosm of those people, you could see how people grew up and how they became real adults and their lives change. And just like all of us, we find who we are, we find what we believe in, and maybe that doesn't always agree with what we all think, right?
And I think it's an important thing to say, to value your roots, where you came from.
Yes.
I think that will determine who you're going to become, right? What are your thoughts when corporations, I don't want to get too deep in politics, but when these big corporations get into politics today?
Well, I look at, there's kind of a theme that happened recently in some of the madness that I think that's going on in our country and world today. And I look at some of the players that got involved and have made these what appears to be big shifts. And while I don't know them anymore, I don't talk to them anymore, but from interacting with them years ago, I wonder if it's more about protecting their company than it is about truly how they feel.
Yeah.
Now, do I know that? I don't. I knew Mark when he was a very young guy.
Yeah,
I did have this great experience. When I left, I said to him, Mark, I'd like to see you in 10 years. And he said, well, you're leaving. Why do you want to see me? And I said, I just want to see what happened to you. I want to see where the company went. Well, I forgot all about it. And I was sitting at my desk one day, 10 years later, and what popped up on Facebook but a message that said, do you still want to have lunch?
Oh, wow.
And I remember looking at that message thinking to myself, Tom, do you want to have lunch with the fifth richest man in the world? And after a couple seconds, I said, hell yeah, I'm going to have lunch with the fifth richest man in the world. So long story short, I went and we scheduled a time. I had 30 minutes, and I remember going there, and they parked me between these two glass conference rooms. One was his and one was Cheryl's. He was in a meeting, and I positioned myself so I could look around. And it was really cool because there was part of the artwork that had been in an office that I actually built had been cut out and was hanging as
good
part
memories.
of it. So it was really great memories, right? And then their meeting ended, and Mark came out, and we sort of said hello and had I think even a hug. And about that time, this photographer took our picture, and I thought to myself, oh, how cute is this? They're going to feature me at the All Hands or in a newsletter. And then I had this realization, Tom, you're meeting with the fifth richest man in the world. They're taking your picture because if something happens, they can prove you were here.
I was part of the production team, the executive team, and I was in the room or in the studio, if you want to say, or in his office, for a couple of times, like maybe 4 or 5 times, whatever, right? He's super fast. But when he turned off the cameras, grab a slice of a pizza, start eating, normal person.
Yes, totally.
Right? So what are your thoughts when it comes to companies on social media? I'm sorry, not necessarily Facebook or Instagram, but social media in general, since I'm going to take advantage of your business mind there. When countries are blocking social media, like China or Brazil blocking X or so and forth?
You know, it's really hard because for one, we've made all these connections because let's take China for example. I have a lot of Chinese friends and I'm sure they have people back home they're connected with. Or let's say we traveled and we met people and we want to stay connected with them. Well, I think in our world that sometimes we forget that we're all far more alike than we'll ever be different. You know, we have families, we want to be loved, we breathe, we need to eat. There's just so many, want a roof over our heads, right? But then the culture we live in sometimes, and the leaders of it, lose maybe sight of that as either they get power or they're running the country. I'm sure that in some cases they think they're doing the right thing. Personally, I'm all for unity. I'm all for us crossing these barriers. I know I love to travel, and when I do, I love to get with the local people and eat the local food and learn about the customs because my life is so much richer from those times and experiences. And I think when we start blocking each other from those things, we don't do a good service to ourselves. I think, in fact, it's a disservice.
What are your thoughts on big corporations that have FTEs and have contractors and they don't get the same benefits, but they help to build this big global organization?
Yeah, you know, I have two sides of this to look at because I used to run HR in some of these, in the people department in some of these companies, as well as I've been a contractor at some before, not such as big as we're talking about, and I've certainly been an FTE there. And I think that sometimes in our effort to manage to the bottom line, we lose sight of the fact that when we treat everyone equal and make opportunities equal, you're building a team. People work more like a team. I'll give you a reflection. When I worked at Palm, I had customer service centers around the world, probably 4,000 people or more, that they were outsourcing, we were responsible for. And I remember going into meetings at our headquarters, and people would refer to them as those people, or in some way as if they were disconnected. And in my eyes, these people are taking care of our most valuable asset next to our employees, which are our customers. So I scratched my head and said, Tom, how are we going to shift this when we think about the bottom line, about let me give something that maybe you can buy as merch as an employee that maybe you can't as a contractor. I think we lose the opportunity of building a team. Now there's somebody somewhere that's counting dollars and cents that's saying this makes sense to the bottom line. I challenge them to think about that a little differently, about how they might bring people together in treating people the same as opposed to what their status is on a piece of paper.
I totally agree with you. I think you build your team in a bigger way that will be proud to be working for that company.
Yes.
As a contractor per se. So let's talk about some people came to you and say you have 6 months to live.
3 times.
It you felt like really terrible at the time.
Well, you know, I had already been through a horrible illness. In fact, I was told it was terminal, and that, you know, I was diagnosed with HIV in 1989. My brother died here at San Francisco General in 85. That story is in the book, chapter 9. And, you know, I got diagnosed in 89. I was at the height of my career at MCI. And I left this Whitman Walker clinic from anonymous testing, and I went and sat in the car, and I looked in the rearview mirror, and I spoke to the virus, and I said, if you want to take me out, you're in for one hell of a fight. If you want to come to this party I'm having, come on over. And so that was the beginning of how I kind of approached that illness, and I was full-blown AIDS out of the gate. I went back to work. I was like on a fast track. I couldn't imagine until a few weeks later the doctor said to me, you know, you have 6 months to live at best. Do you want to spend it at your desk or doing something you enjoy? I made the hardest decision, one of certainly the most hard I've made it, of leaving there and going on disability. Well, I turned that into action. I ended up with 6 other guys helping open the DC Buyers Club called the Hope Foundation. I named it the Healing Options and Positive Energies, just like the Dallas Buyers Club movie. We opened the DC Buyers Club, and you know, in the front room we had a lot of information, and if nothing more than a good ear or a hug when nobody else would hug you. Once we got to know you, we invited you into the back room to learn about some stuff that we brought in from other countries. There was nothing, so we were doing things because we were desperate and we'd try anything, but we put some smarts behind it. And so I think this engagement of when we're ill, of staying engaged, and yes, we feel bad. I'm not taking away from being ill and feeling bad, but to engage in the reality of what's happening and what can we do with that, right? And, you know, I was at a point where I decided I was going to move to San Francisco because I knew if there was any chance it was here.
Yeah.
And when I moved here, once again, I had been given 6 months to live. And I got here and I couldn't find a doctor. It was so crazy in the 90s. There was waiting lists. And so I got on 3 cancellation lists, finally got a call, somebody canceled, and met the incredible Mary Romaine at the time, who was an amazing doctor, all involved in ACT UP, and we ran an HIV clinic out of her office in the Sunset. We had a nonprofit going. I ran clinical trials. I was the executive director of it while I was sick. So I think when we empower ourselves to do some of this, well, I went through that, and there's many stories in the book around it. And later, you know, I end up with cancer, you know, after I went back to work on my own. And 1999, at the end of it, early 2000, I was told this is the best it gets. I had 9 T cells. I named them, asked people to take care of them. And this is it. And I thought, kind of as Tom LeNoble thinks sometimes, like, oh, really, watch this. And I decided I'm going to go back to work. Well, the doctor says it's going to kill you. The disability company gave me an extra year to fall back on. And I went back and got a job in the dot-com bubble at an internet company. I had missed the whole internet revolution. I remember thinking, what's going to happen to me? But I knew I was bright. I knew there was a way I was going to pull this off, and I did.
I think it's, for myself especially, I can't say for anybody else, I think sometimes it's important to see the negative side. Be there, notice, acknowledge it,
Yes.
but move on.
Absolutely. You know, I do this thing because I still get the bad lab result or the diagnosis. I went through 3 series of radiation last year. I really am your nightlight. And I've learned that I do so, and I don't think everybody else can do this. I'm not asking everybody to do this, but I get it.
Yeah.
I look at my watch, and I say, Tom, 40 minutes. Cry, scream, cuss, stomp, say, God, why are you doing this to me? Whatever you want to do, and get it out, and then get on with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Life goes on.
Feel what you need to feel.
Yeah. Some people have a different approaches towards life. I'm seeing you now. This is the first time I'm meeting you. There's a light on you. Maybe it's from radiation. Just kidding. But I think we have to have some laughs in life, right? To go through, because it's not easy for anybody. But why do you think some people, through hard times, difficult times, they have a different approach, on a more of a positive approach than other people?
You know, we're just all different. We all have different experiences in life. We're all raised differently. We've had experiences, and I think we take those experiences and things grow out of them. And sometimes people tell us you can't or it's not possible, and we listen to that. I know my parents' generation, for example, if you had to go to the doctor, you sort of turned your body over and they gave it back to you when they were finished. And things have changed, of course, and we all can't do it, but I laugh sometimes because I've got an oncologist who calls me a clinical trial of one, because I created this thing called a healing wheel back in the time of HIV, and then I recreated it for cancer, where I'm at the center. The spokes are massage, acupuncture, my medical doctors, my Eastern, all these different things that I meditation, whatever it is I may do, but I am in charge.
As you mentioned, you have great doctors, great healthcare, you're white, and it shouldn't be that way to anybody. Everybody deserves to be treated equally. But we know, I wasn't born yesterday. That's life. That happens, right? But what do you say to those who, I know you came from a humble family, you
did.
built your life,
I
which
did.
I really admire that on somebody's, because it's not easy when you're born outside of that rich bubble, and then to make your own life a successful one. In your case, I applaud that. But it's not easy for everybody because the different background, different education,
Yes.
different family parents, that has a lot to say who you're gonna become
Yes.
in your future, right? What would you tell those people who are suffering? Maybe they don't have a good doctor, they don't have a health insurance, especially now the premiums are going high up. So what did you tell them?
It's not what I say, it's what I do. It's what I put into action. I believe that those of us that do well have a responsibility to give back. I have a keynote about what I call the philanthropic mindset that teaches people that philanthropy just isn't about dollars, writing a check, having your name on a building, or going to a gala. Your smile or hello can be a philanthropic gesture. But in my world, it's not what I say to people, it's what I demonstrate. So I'm a philanthropist. My passion is underserved communities, youth in the arts, first-gen students, today's current women's issues, of course GLBTQ plus AI issues in my community. I have a host of other things. I used to do it all anonymously, and since the book I've kind of come out of my hiding.
I think that's this one of the secrets of life. Giving without expecting anything back. But let's.
You're not, it's a great thing to say. Let's just take a moment with it, because when you're giving with an expectation, you're really not giving.
No.
It's the same thing as I just said, that your smile or a hello can be a philanthropic gesture. If I'm giving you my smile or saying hello with an expectation you're going to give it back to me, that gesture was about me, not the person I smiled at or said hello to.
I totally agree with you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
I really
very
appreciate
much.
it meeting you.
You as well. I
Thank you
enjoyed
so
being
much.
here with you today.
I truly
Thank
do.
you.
The book, it's on Amazon, and also you can find the audio version, which took you many hours to record.
Yeah, it's
I
a great
heard.
story.
Yeah, so people can find the book on Amazon. Thank you so much, Tom LeNoble, which is a beautiful name.
Thank
Anyway,
you.
beautiful soul. I'll see you next time.
I hope so. Thank you so much. It was great to be with you.